I mean, we can do 2 and 3 next time instead of like doing one part.
Yeah, whatever you want.
I think so. It's not. It's not much.
Yeah, it's not. Respectfully.
And the words are quite big.
What'd you say?
The words, like the letters.
What about the words?
No, I mean the letters are like quite big. It's like Sans 8 or Arial 12. So it's not like it's a very small wording.
Oh, got it. Okay.
218 pages could have been probably 100.
Got okay. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I think he made this definitely to be a quick read. You
Yeah.
know, yeah. But we can go ahead and jump into it. Good morning, good afternoon. I got my sister Ms. Legros with me every other Sunday, coming through with the book review of Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man by Emmanuel. Is it Achu? I said it correctly. Achu.
I think so. It's actual. Yeah.
Yeah, Acho. And this brother man is a educated NFL superstar, sports commentator, has a nice little hairline. And he wrote a book, about about race, culture, everything that's happening now. I feel like because did you listen to did you read the foreword, the beginning?
Oh, yeah. I did.
Yeah, and he was talking about. I thought he was gonna. I thought because when I first heard the foreword, I was like really, really excited. I thought he was gonna like pretty much just kind of talk about that duality of him being uh he's Nigerian American, right?
Yeah.
To growing up in like a all white environment to going to college. Like I thought the whole book was gonna be about that. And so I was like, okay, that's pretty interesting, right? And then he ends up going into just like the alphabets of racism. And I thought that was pretty, good, but it wasn't for me, but I know who this is for. So that's why I would say that I really, really would recommend this book, for anyone who, hasn't. I feel like this is a, critical race theory. You heard that word before? Well, that's actually like a buzzword now because they're trying to get rid of it. They're trying to outlaw it here.
Okay.
Certain legislators are trying to outlaw it because they're saying that it's reverse racism. And I would say that this book is like a very mainstream anti-race book for your just common layman, white man, white person, or any other person who don't understand like race issues going on in America. I think this is a really good introduction to all those various topics within like a short snapshot. What do you think?
Yeah. I think. Yeah, I agree. I think it is a quick guide to for all of uh, Americans that they had felt like, okay, let me double check what I'm doing wrong or what I can do better after the Black Lives Matter movement that happened in 2020. I think that was the purpose, is like provide a tool so you don't have an excuse anymore about like you didn't know. There are like a lot of books that they are being created to help to check your privilege and try to like become like more understanding and empathy and a better ally that is needed at this moment. So
Yeah.
I like the book is not for me because there are a lot of things that I'm like, and I would tell you later. Like there was one thing I'm like, no, again. But it was very interesting to see like how he broke it into like you know like a few notes that they are very easy to pick. And when you read it, it's like it's not that much of an effort.
Well,
This is
yeah, it's not that type of book. It's not like a deep
no,
analytical.
I mean like it's not that much of an effort for people to become better.
Interesting.
This is like a very standard. If you follow this guide, everything will be better for everybody.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I feel like this is just the intro. Like I think it's just like the if you've never ever, experienced or understood these, I feel like this is like an intro. I also think it's a good thing for kids to read. I could see high
Mhm.
schoolers definitely reading this and getting like a really good layman fundamental understanding of race theory and
He
racism.
has created another version for young people of this book.
Oh, you did.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So,
Okay.
mhm.
So just to kind of bring context, so the way that he has the book, he has it pretty much where he is taking his YouTube series, where I guess he verbalizes pretty much everything that he wrote about in the book, and he takes the questions that he got from his fans, and he starts each chapter off with that question, and he elaborates on that. So he has one called the Name Game, and he starts talking about the difference between being black and African American, and how certain cultures, they may not know the difference, right? um
Mhm.
and therefore they can segregate themselves because of that. He talks about implicit biases, white privilege, cultural appropriation. He brought up Kim Kardashian, as an example, which was very funny.
Yeah.
And then the last part, he talks about the N word, right? And he, literally says like you should never use the N word, because he brings up the situation that happened with the wide receiver who pretty much said a racist slur, and he brings that perspective as an NFL star in working with those people. So I think that's really dope. Again, there's a lot of NFL stars who you know do a lot of social advocacy. A lot of them, some of them are authors, and they, really, really try to not say kill the stereotype that they get put in, because it is what it is. But they definitely do put their foot forward, and I do appreciate the effort from the
Yeah.
brother, man.
I feel like one of the things that was interesting for me is when he's talking on the. So we're analyzing right now part one, and
Hmm.
it's like divided in 6 chapters. So one of them it is regarding Black or African American. What is the right terminology? And I think like that is very interesting because we are reading this in the context of America. I think if you're talking to someone that it is in the African continent, they probably don't want to be referred as Black. They would
Yeah.
like to be referred as Nigerian or regarding their tribe. And I think that those are like things that he just went through the surface.
Yeah,
He
absolutely.
just did like a quick snapshot of like what is happening. But the terminology, he mentioned himself like he is Nigerian American. Uh, Other thing that is interesting is that his family never suffered Jim Crow
Right.
or never suffered like slavery because he is coming from the continent. Maybe he has relatives that they were like enslaved here. We don't know, but he has no like he comes a time in the history of America that he has passed a lot of things that Black American is actually struggling with. I think like he didn't touch that. I will appreciate if he touched that a little bit more, because when he's explaining that is not his pain. He has never suffered the consequences, of like all these stages. And for white American, they may don't understand. He do clarifies that he's coming from a place of privilege and he's coming from a middle class family, but he need I would have appreciated like he is middle class family because his family are immigrants and they came with a set of tools that Black American doesn't have. So that was like something that for me was missing in the context.
Yeah.
It's
So,
not the same.
so do you think when he says like let's get uncomfortable, do you think that's really uncomfortable?
Yeah, like he should have, and I do appreciate what he is doing, but he should, like, if we're teaching and we're being humble, I think like he should have put himself on like, okay, this is what happened. I have not suffered this. Jim Crow has not been applied to my family at all, you know. And it's the same thing. Like I'm coming from an enslaved community myself. I'm coming from Haiti.
Yeah.
I have suffered things that people in the country know me. Like my family has suffered, my family tree, my, you know, my ancestors has suffered things that they are not applicable in Africa. Africa has suffered like colonialism that happened later,
Yeah.
and there are a lot of like pain and consequences from that era. But when you are coming teaching what is happening in Black America and how you can be a better ally, I think he's also an ally for Black America,
Yeah.
even though nationality wise, he is a Black American.
Mm-hmm.
But he mentioned he's Nigerian American. You already have the privilege of having an identity, and we talked about that in the previous book. You have the identity. The same thing. I do have an identity because I was able. My family was able to live in Haiti, that it was a free republic.
Right.
But then, if you go to your own family tree, you see like probably as a Black American that
Sorry.
all your family members have suffered from the racist policies that had been applied.
And the thing about Haiti is that you all got independence, which is very important. You know, having independence is very important.
We were able to retain the identity. However, we were punished in another way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so just to read, he said, I had my own journey. Growing up at home, I felt Nigerian because that's what my family was. Out in the world, I felt Black because I knew that is how the rest of the world saw me. I knew this despite the fact that, as I said in the intro, I wasn't even sure if I was even Black, what even Black meant. Like, you know, was I Black enough to listen to R&B instead of Lil Wayne or Nas? Whatever I doubted about the specifics, my skin color made me a lifetime member of the club.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's still learning, absolutely. And it's good that, you know, he is reflecting on these things and he is educating himself because he does some really great references, like he references W.B. Du Bois, talks about NAACP and the Black Lives Matter movement. So again, you know, I would definitely, this book is a really good intro to just like a very level one version of critical race theory because you're understanding just like, you know, just how racism is, the criticality of it. And he talks about uncomfortable topics that I feel are really uncomfortable for, you know, people that, you know, that don't look like us, right? What's the word I'm looking for? Okay, so like what happened like with Kamala Harris and Tim Scott. So Tim Scott, you know, he got up saying that racism, you know, America wasn't a racist country, right? And Kamala Harris, she was asked the same thing and she agreed, but she gave a different context, right? And so the critique of the two, right, is that it's a false equivalency, right? But they were saying that, you know, Kamala said that because, you know, she also has white constituents as well, right? She's not just, you know, a Black American's vice president. She's also everyone's president. And so she has to be mindful and be strategic with how she says things and not fall for the okie doke. Tim Scott, however, he actually has a conglomerate of people that actually believe that racism doesn't exist. And they're doing that specifically to not get stuff done, you know? And I think that's why critical race theory is so important. But you have people literally that are outlawing. If you just look it up, look up critical race theory in the last couple of weeks in the United States. You have people that are like going to legislators saying that I'm not racist just because I don't want my child to learn critical race theory, you know? But the person was like, yeah, you are, you know, because it's just, it's something that he says in the book. He said that, you know, white supremacy affects you and you contribute from it whether you even know it. And if you perpetuate it and you don't do nothing about it, you know, you're literally, you know, you're a factor in it. And I think these types of books are needed, right? Like White Fragility. He references that book. I haven't seen that book, but I've heard about it, right? And How to Be Anti-Racist, right? Like our consciousness has already been there. I felt for the last couple years, and a lot of people are waking up, and just people need different type of tools to help guide them to start that journey, right? Because it is a long ass journey.
And I think I like the part that in the book, every chapter, he has one part called Let's Rewind. So he can provide it context. I think like that was very smart because a lot of people, and it's not only white America, it happens everywhere. They forget about the consequences of like, different policies or like the context, like what is happening. They kind of feel like we went from 0 to 100 like this, and you're like, well, and what happened here and what happened, they
Yeah.
don't know. So I think was very very good that he added the let's rewind and provides like a very good context. That was like very smart.
Yeah.
uh,
Absolutely.
I think,
Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
the other part, implicit bias,
Mm-hmm.
it was very clever how he mentioned like what does that mean. Like, you don't need to be racist, you can be subconsciously biased, and the outcome of people and like people is going to be a victim of that subconscious bias if you are not on track. We all have subconscious bias, we all do. Like, this is not only for like one part of the world, we all do. However, the difference is the power that you have with that subconscious bias.
Yep.
That is a hard thing. um Sorry, an ambulance. um and the example of like when he was mentioning like people who applies for works that sometimes they have to change their name to be more like white sounding, so they make sure that they are able to go ahead and to be accepted.
Yeah.
That is hard because I have a lot of Nigerian friends and most of them they change their name.
Wow.
Most of them do.
Wow.
And people doesn't, obviously they don't understand. They don't understand what you have to do in order to survive or to be successful, how you have to tone down your blackness or like your heritage, so people doesn't see you as a threat and they are providing you equal opportunities.
And let's go ahead and read it where it says, let's get uncomfortable for that. So he says, what are your implicit biases against Black people or people of other races? How have those biases played out in your decision making and how you treat people? That's really deep. And then he says, I'm not sure talking about these things is uncomfortable for many of you, especially for those of you who believe yourself to be good people, who don't consider yourself to be racist, who want to treat people fairly, but that's all the more reason to discuss your biases, to learn about them, critique them, to try to trace where they come from. I like to use the acronym denial. Don't even know I am lying. The first way to end racism is for my white counterparts to get out of denial, to understand that, wait a second, maybe you've been lying to yourself about the existence of racism the whole time. Like again, so it's really simplistic, anecdotes to, understand these topics. Now I can give really credit. I can give you credit for that.
Yeah, it's interesting because yesterday something happened to me. I went to an appointment, and then it was one guy who was like delivering food. He knocked at the door, and right now the policy is like you cannot open the door. You have to like can be only one person in this establishment. And I was there. The girl at reception, she was like attending me, and she was like getting a little bit of like she was looking for the next time slot. So she was like kind of focused. So the guy knocked at the door. She said like 1 second. She could have just like go open the door, get the food, and that's it. Well, the guy leaves. He comes back again. He said like he knocked at the door again, and he was very educated. Like he didn't say anything rude. And she opened the door, And she was like, you don't see, like, I'm working, like, I'm doing my job too. Like, can you wait a second? Daddy, daddy, daddy. You can tell the color was who. In, like the receptionist was white and the guy was dark skinned. I was there like, wow. And she came back. She said, like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like, I really feel like, oh my God, like he could have waited. And I'm like, no, he couldn't. He didn't have to. So
Yeah.
I saw subconscious bias. I don't know how far it will go to racism because it's difficult for to address in 1 second. But I'm like, I did, and and I appreciate this book because I felt I cannot be teaching everybody on the street how to treat Black people or like how to treat anybody of like any minority. But it really feel like a lot of weight in our shoulders. So I appreciate that he took the time to write a book for people who at least they have the curiosity. Um, but you are in a situation where you don't want to go into a fight. You don't want to be like in an argument with someone. But at the same time, I felt guilty because I could have said something, but I chose not to
Right.
because I felt myself very uncomfortable. The guy didn't care. He left and he was like, yeah, you're crazy. And that's it. But me being in the middle at that point, I'm like, you never know when you have to act and how, at what point, like, should I have acted or I shouldn't? I should like let it go. I should let it pass. It
Yeah.
is hard.
It is hard. It's very hard. And that's why he talks about it like, because he referenced the pandemic, right? But then he compares it to like another virus, which is like racism, and we've been experiencing this forever. And we don't even know it, So, and it's been here longer than the pandemic, right? And so that dynamic is just, yeah, because you're seeing it shows just how powerful or just, implicit biases, the dynamic, right? Because you can see it from the person's lens, you can see it from the guy's lens, you can see the injustice, right? And you can see the unconsciousness of it, and how even if you're unconscious, it's still just as like hurtful. And even for you, right? You feel guilty, right? You feel guilty because you felt like maybe you could have been a little bit more, active, right? And that's real on many different levels, in many different contexts, in many different situations. You know, yeah, he says instead of being colorblind, be introspective. And I think that's a great example of like what you were doing. You being very introspective and like understanding, like to seeing that dynamic. I think our
Mhm.
issues is I remember I was watching it was like a post, and it was some type of park or something like that. And it was like an anti-racist message on there, and it
Okay.
was a message for white people, and it said literally, white people, when you enter this environment, decenter yourself. That's the first thing it said. And the guy, when he posted it, he was like, kind of like, oh, hell no, I'm never going to this place because they said I can't go. And then I commented, I was like, keyword, decenter yourself, you know?
Yeah.
I feel like in order for us to understand like implicit biases, we definitely have to decenter ourselves and have a sense of introspection. And then analyze, right? It's a lot, man. It's a
It's
lot.
a lot. It's a lot because you know, you navigate life with that backpack full of like that like how is it prejudice? Like it's a backpack that Black people we carry on, like of like becoming a target any moment, anytime,
Mhm.
without like having any context. It's just like the color of the skin is just enough for you to become a target. You don't have to, and it's like so many levels. It is worse if you are like someone who is poor. The poorer you are, it gets worse because no one is going to help you. No one. No
Yeah.
one cares. And I think it's very difficult to see that behavior around us and having to like having to start like looking a straight line, saying like, okay, well, I have to focus. This is not my battle. I cannot protect everybody. I cannot teach everybody. It creates a lot of weight, in on us because you witness that, but you cannot be fixing everything.
Yeah.
That is something like we don't really talk about a lot in terms of like the community, but we have to deal with that all the time. How many times at work I have heard something that is racist or like subconsciously it is negative for like any minority, but you don't say anything. You shut up and just like let it slide because you have to pick your battles. So
That's
I
interesting.
hope like a lot of people learn.
What'd you say?
No, I said I hope a lot of people learn from this book.
I mean, it's a bestseller. I looked it up on Amazon. A lot of people like it. So, and when I
So
posted
I
it,
hope we are not the best sellers, the best buyers. I hope it goes in the right hands.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And also, again, this could be just your introduction, right? Books, like I feel like books should come in like packages. Like after you read this book, then read this book, which is on like a different level. Then read this book on another level, right? But the theme, right? The theme is kind of like the same. So like let's talk about white privilege. So I'm interested to know, like, so being in the UK, and I've heard you say, like the level that US is at with their like critical race consciousness is just a little bit different, right? So I'm
Yeah,
curious to know, and you just said it, like, sometimes, in the workplace you can hear, certain things that are like, racially insensitive. Just kind of like maybe talk about that. Like, what is that white privilege dynamic like in the UK? Is it more based on color or is it more class? Like, what? Just talk
it's,
about
it's
that.
a
Let's
very
get it
close,
comfortable.
yeah, it's a very close combination, and I think, as I mentioned before, the UK or Europe talking about race is quite taboo. So in the States, you guys talk about race all the time, every day. That is, for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you have any racial conversation or topic. Here, it is a little comment here or there. They are not ready to have a tough conversation. They are not
Yeah,
ready to be accountable of like this was made by you and benefited you and your granddaughter and your grandson and all this is becoming because your atrocities what you did in other parts of the world. They are not ready for that. They kind of, and this is not a long time ago. Like, for example, Nigeria has been a free country. They got the independence like 60 years ago. I'm
yeah,
sure, like, you know, my mom is 60 years. So
yeah,
that's not a long time ago. And in the history of a country, or like in hundreds of years of like where we have seen like a racial fight, that's yesterday. 60 years ago, it is yesterday.
right,
But they are not ready. And white privilege right now, like in corporate Britain, there is a lot of conversations going on. Why? Because even though the black community is a minority, there is still some power. But if you go to other countries, you will see some protests here and there, but there is not a disclosure. People doesn't provide. So a lot of times when you register for anything in the US, you have to say what is your race for like almost everything
really.
in any type of application for like education
It does,
purposes,
right.
like a school. If you go to the doctors, every in Europe that is not happening.
Really,
So even though the population of like the black population in Europe is quite low, if you compare with the US, Brazil, or like probably Canada is higher, um, there is still all the disparities, they are not collected. So A lot of people think that white privilege doesn't exist and it's not applicable because it's a majority and it's like the normal.
Wow.
Here in the UK, I had been living here for 10 years, and only now I have seen like a strong push from part of like white Britain having a conversation regarding race. Because between us, we all had a conversation about race because it is part of our education or like our history, growing up experience. But for white Britain, that is, I think it is new. So white privilege, like, and that is the same thing. If you call someone racist, they will be offended, even
Yeah.
though they do a racist thing. But that is the worst thing you can tell them. But at the same time, and that is the part that is so hard, is like at the same time, they cannot put together their actions with the word racist. They will always find a way of saying like, no, that wasn't racist,
Absolutely.
you know? So yeah, it is, I think it's very painful because the worst thing for a victim of racism or like of subconscious bias is to be neglected in terms
Yeah.
of like our pain not to be recognized as such. That's the worst thing.
Yeah, I mean that's the main thing I would say, right? That's why we're saying
Mhm.
Black Lives Matter. It's like a shout to let you know, like, you're not listening to us, man. So we're gonna just keep saying it until you recognize the humanity in what we're saying. And what was the name of the news anchor that left the stage? What was his name? What's his name?
Oh, Piers Morgan.
Yeah, Pierce Morgan. So like even like when Megan pretty much said that the monarch was, they had, systems of racism, or she experienced that.
Yeah.
Even him, who's very racially insensitive, pushes a huge right wing ideology that is rooted in dogma and misinformation. He was like, he was appalled, right? He was offended, right?
He
And
threw a tantrum.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
He threw a tantrum. He was like, I can't
Yeah,
believe this happened.
right. And that's what they do, right? When you're like, because right now, like, you have like legislators fighting with each other because they'll say something like this guy called another kid buckwheat. He called the dude buckwheat, right? You saw that?
Yeah, I saw that.
Right? And the dude literally like started like, yeah, he started like yelling at him. And then the guy instantly was like, why are you yelling at me? Why are you yelling at me? Like, you're like gaslighting him, It's like, so that's all I'm gonna ask you. Do you think it's a lot of gaslighting? Like, are they intentionally like not tracking this data so they can get the research behind it so they can prove it and then do something about it? Or is it like an intentional thing, you feel?
I I think there is so much fear to fix the problem because you could say, listen, I'm sorry, I did this wrong, and but they don't want to fix the problem. Like that's my issue. You
Yeah.
have tools, you have like racial motivated crimes barely goes reflected in numbers. Intentionally, they don't want to fix the problem, and they have, for example, the problem with the police that they are covering up a lot of hate crimes, even though they are not committed by them, but they are not leveling the crime as a hate crime. They
Right.
are not collecting the right data,
Right.
and it goes in all ways. Like you saw a man who like stabbed two Asian women that they were waiting for a bus or something.
You talking about recently?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Where?
I don't know what city,
Oh,
but it
no,
was
no.
in the US.
No, I didn't
So
hear
it was
about that.
a black man that all of a sudden went and like stabbed two women. It seemed that it was a random attack. Now, if it is a random attack to two Asian women and you are not Asian, why that is not categorized as a hate crime? The problem is that people is not going to tell you I hate Black people because they are Black. A lot of them they do, but a lot of them they don't. You got it?
Yeah, it says San Francisco.
Yeah. And that is, and it goes like all every way. This is not only a white issue. I believe that Black people can be racist towards other minorities. Yes, we can.
And
As soon
he
as we have
says
a little bit of
that in
power,
the book.
yeah. So, and those are the things that we are not ready to have a conversation. So I cannot expect a majority to accept the accountability of like being racist when among us in our own community there is people trying to cover up, saying like, no, we're not racist. Yes, you can. There is Asian people right now that had been attacked by Black people and by other groups. But the Black people that they are attacking, they are racist. And it's okay, we can deal with that. But you covering up, that is not gonna work. And it's the same thing, like we have been talking all this time, like we cannot go from left to right, you know, like to be an extremist saying like all white people are bad, or that's not, we will never be able to heal.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Jane Elliott says like we get so caught up in the color thing, we don't recognize that we're human. And you know,
Yeah.
and she says like, you know, until once we get out of this color thing, like it just keep, because we understand what we mean when we say that, but people actually take it literally, right? They'll say
Right.
like white is equal to the quote unquote devil, you know, or the opposite will say black is quote unquote to whatever negative stereotype, right? Like they'll treat it like they'll believe it, you know? And she's like, she says that is the problem. Like we can't do the same thing that they're doing to us, right? And like kind of mentioned to what you're saying, like that xenophobia, which is a product of racism as well, you know, it doesn't, you can't be pro-black and be xenophobic. It doesn't make sense. Like it just doesn't make sense at all. Um and yeah, so I would say yeah. So like everybody's, you know, we have to be fair on all ends and not be hypocritical, you know. And I
Yeah.
think that's why critical race theory is important because it is uncomfortable, right? And that's the whole topic of this book is being uncomfortable. But with that uncomfortable, I mean, think about. I remember you telling me about like your lineage and how it was connected to something that you weren't proud of. I bet that was like something that was like uncomfortable for you, right?
100%. It's very uncomfortable. Even when I do understand that I have light skin privilege, I embrace it because I'm not going to take it away. Everybody has their own privilege.
Hmm.
But it is uncomfortable if it is based on other people's struggle or like the opportunities are not being provided fairly. No. You know, and when, if I am in a situation where I'm getting light skin privilege towards someone who is dark skin and we are in the same room, I'm going to make sure that I provide that you know, I help the other person to level up the situation because it is not cool. Like we
Right.
have to, and that is like what I like about these conversations is like this is a learning journey for everybody. We have learned a lot about certain things, but we still have to grow. It doesn't stop here. So
Yeah.
us having this conversation, it only going to benefit us as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so he talks about cultural appropriation, and he mentions this in the book, you know, about Karens, and again, you know, it's a lot of modern day topics that he references, and it's just
Yeah, it was like a lot of things were like dated in 2020. So I
yeah,
was like, when this guy printed the book?
he took advantage. He got that COVID, that COVID time. You know what I'm saying? Um, yeah. He said, I want to leave you with this. If you see a black man and he's angry, obviously don't assume he's angry because he's black, but also don't assume he's even angry at anything racism related in that moment. Let people have emotions. See him as an individual.
And I think like that is very interesting. For example, when we see a lot of videos of like Black people in America interacting with the police,
Yeah.
people need to understand this is not the first time that they have been stopped.
Yeah.
I have never been stopped only at the airports because that's what happens when you are Black in any airport. But I have never been stopped in the street. Now, most of like my Black friends in the UK, they have been stopped at one point.
Yeah.
Probably
I've had a gun pulled out on them, or gotten pulled over and 50 cop cars showed up, or asked if you got weapons or drugs in the car. Every time you get pulled, it's just like harassment.
it is. And when you are being stopped or like questioned about a petty thing, or you are being treated, unfairly or differently from other white bystanders around you, it is normal that you are going to be perceived as an angry person because you are angry and rightly so. Why you are stopping me? Why you are not stopping that person?
Yeah.
Why you are like checking my back twice? Why you are like going through my hair?
Right.
Why everybody else is passing and you're asking me my passport twice?
Yeah.
Why you put me like around like the other room? That happened all the time. So
What?
it's very difficult to be cool all the time and be like, oh yes, officer, here you go, check this, no worry. I try to do that like 99%, but probably one day I won't be that cool and I will be upset, especially if I have like children around or like they are talking to like someone else. It will be hurtful.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
people need to understand where the anger comes from. It's not like we wake up and we are let me be angry.
I mean, but let's talk about it, right? Because you have people that are like, I'm gonna go right back to it. Joe, you like it's like, Joe, what has Joe Biden done for Black people, right? And I actually figured it out too. I got an answer to that. But what has Joe
Okay.
Biden done for Black people? He signed a law, for trans people. He signed a law for Asian people, right? And I'm just like, bro, like, before, like, you could join the military just because you who you are. Before he instituted, like, you couldn't join the military if you was trans, like that. You had that right already, and you complaining about something that you already have for someone who literally it got taken away, right? And they passed a anti-trans bill in I believe it's in Arkansas, right? And and they were just talking about like how like the number of suicides that happened since then,
Oh,
right? And so we're not just mad because we're getting pulled over. We're mad because there's literally systems in place that treat us differently. I remember when I was coming from Dominican Republic from my because I have family members that have property in DR. My wife's
okay.
family has property in DR. My immediate family has property in DR. And on our way there, we went through normal airport, but on our way back, they put us through like if you know what I'm talking about. It's like I don't even know how to describe it, man. But it's the part that they go through when they're trying to check in people from different countries, if you know what I mean. Please give me the name for it.
Yeah. Tell me your story.
Yeah, so literally we go through this tunnel. So we go through this tunnel and it's like a narrow tunnel. I've never seen this before, ever in like an airport before, but it's literally on the underground, whatever. We go through the tunnel, we take like 7 turns, and then we come around and they start checking us in. They got all these dogs just sniffing people, right? And as an American, I'm just like I felt like violated. Like, the fuck? Like, y'all don't treat us like this. No, like, why is But it's just like that too. Like, I just was like, wow. Like,
Those tunnels, they were designed for people who are trying to escape the country, like dissidents or politicians. When they also had what's the name, a dictatorship.
mm,
So when people was trying to escape, you will go through the tunnel and you will never be seen again, because that happens also in Haiti. They have a similar tunnel. My uncle told me about it. And during the dictatorship, people was flying. He said like a lot of times people was going through the tunnel and then they will never go on board the flight. So those tunnels, they were used for that purpose. Like you just don't see light again. You just like go to jail directly or something.
Yeah.
There. And it's so funny because I was in Dominican Republic as well. I was there for work. And then I was flying and I met a Dominican woman. She was like white Dominican. I was flying close with her. Like we just happened to be on the same flight and we met a long time ago. And then they took my bag. I checked, but they didn't put the sticker. They put a sticker for her. They didn't put it for me. 2 minutes before like going to board, they called me and they said like, no, you don't have the sticker. And I'm like, how you knew? They pulled me back and they said like, oh, there are arrests of cocaine here. Like it was like giving like cocaine or like drugs. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm telling you, I felt like I was like, are they putting something on my back? And they're just trying to like to frame me or something? Then they check again, and I was like, look, I don't know what is happening. And then they let me go randomly. But I'm like, this didn't happen to anybody who was white. And most were white Dominicans.
Yeah.
The same thing happened to me when I was flying to Bali. I was wearing braids way longer than yours. And then they were like going through my braids and checking all. It didn't happen to anybody else. And they check on me in every airport. And I noticed that because sometimes I travel with friends they happen when we are like all black, we are all going. You see the whole flight going through one direction, and you are pulling the other one. You are like, this is a bit too obvious, and it happens all the time. And then you still cannot be angry. You have to.
Right. It happens because they can do it.
Exactly.
Because it's in law, and that is why people need to, vote and understand like laws and stuff, because they can do that stuff because they can do it because they wrote it and then they made it into law. You know what I'm saying? Like, even what they're doing with these voter suppression laws.
Because we are not protected.
Exactly.
They're never going to be accountable, and because it's such a thin line between what you can do and you can't, that they do that all the time, and that thin line becomes more and more blurry. And until you don't see how other people are being treated, you don't understand that you are being mistreated, because that happens to you all the time. And I'm lucky that I live in Europe, but when I see a lot of interactions happening in the US, sometimes I'm like, wow. And then here as well, they treat you bad, but you cannot call it out. Because there is no an ally saying like, no, you are being racist. It has to be someone from the same group. It cannot be us. Our voice doesn't have that power, unfortunately.
It has to be a system. It has to be like because that's how racism works, right? And that's the big confusion people get about critical race theory. They take it personal, right? It's like me, but it's like we're not even talking about you, bro. Like, yeah, you probably racist, but okay, we're talking about the people that are making these laws that's making it harder for people to vote, right? And therefore, you continue to think that just because I don't have an ID, because they'll be like, oh, why, they can just get an ID, right? But it's like, just like the privilege, I didn't even know they had tunnels. You didn't even know that people didn't have IDs, because in your world, everyone has an ID. And that is the problem, right? You can't decenter yourself.
Yeah, yeah. And also, seeing what is happening right now in the US, maybe, I get a lot of news from Instagram. I follow a lot of like news, that they have on Instagram account. So, and the ones I select the ones that I believe that they are important and relevant for me. when I see all these bills trying to be passed about like preventing vote or like execution, execution with like
Fire squad.
riffles
Yep.
is so disturbing. It's so disturbing and really scary that the higher power that in the country cannot control those bills. That is hard. That is very disturbing. Of like, yo, they are very serious. They don't care about being called racist,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's like they're trying to grab control no matter what. You know, it looks like desperation at this point. It looks like really like, yo, we're going hard because if we don't play this ball, we're losing.
Yeah, it's white rage. Yeah, it's white rage, and that's historical, right? That's nothing that's new. But again, that they do it because they can, right? State laws versus governmental law, like they like you can't infringe upon state what the state wants, right? But because those Republican run states, those governments are majority Republican, you understand what I mean? They have the power to do it. Therefore, they do it. Obviously they're fascists, obviously they're racist, right? But that's why we got to pass the People's Act. That's why that's that it's. But they're doing it because they're losing power, right? Because
Yeah,
people are recognizing that they're not the party for people at all.
I mean,
People are yeah,
you can, yeah, you can tell that because you see desperation. You see like, we have to do something. We have to prevent this to continue growing. Um, they feel threatened, their power threatened. It's not about like their lives,
yeah,
not about survival. It's their power
power.
threatened. It's
Yeah,
not even like financial. It is really in their mindset, like what they have created, the world that it should look.
yep,
It's threatened. It's so scary, so scary. Um,
yeah. But we gonna get through it. It is scary. It is scary.
yeah,
We gonna get through it because
yeah,
I mean
have
that's
to
all
be.
that's all we do, right? And
Mhm.
I think a good thing about what you said about we have to make sure we look in the mirror, and make sure that we're not being hypocritical and we just, live through that. And so the last chapter he talks about the N word and then the it's real easy. Nope.
The first thing that I noticed, he said like it's coming from a Latin word, and then it was taken by a British. Like no, 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 no again. No, no connecting to like this created. No, Portuguese and Spaniards they use the word negro, which means black.
Yeah,
Portuguese and Spaniards, they were the first one that had interaction with Africans, that they were being labeled as black. So it's not British, and it's definitely not American. American didn't existed,
yeah,
as the ones that we understand now. So again, I think that has been written somewhere, that it was created, and people continue like repeating the same thing, but you just have to look logically. Who brought the first black people to the continent was the Portuguese and the Spaniards, then followed by the French, then the British, and then you go all that.
yeah,
America was the last part of the continent that was funded. It was the Caribbean first, then they started Latin America, and they went up to North America. The word negro was used all this time. So
mhm,
don't give, I don't, they need to understand this is the racial, and that is why it's so important to put in perspective. The racial relationship between Black people and like European existed before America.
yeah,
This is not this is not an American problem only.
yeah,
Put it
yeah.
this way. Um, I just wanted to clarify that because every time that I see it written, I'm like, no, no, no,
No,
no.
yeah, I appreciate the historical context and the correction. We definitely, I
So
appreciate it.
about the word. Do you use it? You
Yeah,
don't use it? You use it?
yeah, I use it. But it's something that I just grew up, saying it, with my people, right? But again, I'm gonna take what Tamika Mallory said. She was like, we the only culture that, I don't say we're the only culture that does this, but I feel like we do it too much where it becomes poison, where we take adversity and we make it something positive. We do
Yeah.
that so much. I feel like that can be very detrimental. Even we do that in hip hop, right? We take a lot of our trauma and we put it in music, right? Which is fine, but that's not the end all be all. And I think education is important. I think that's what he's trying to say here. Like just don't say it, right? Just
Yeah,
don't.
yeah, yeah. It's not for you. It's not, it doesn't meant to be for you to kind of say it. It's the same thing like between women. We can call each other bitch,
Yeah,
but then you don't dare to use that term. At least we are in the same, in the same community, in the same group. I feel close enough for you to call me that way, and it's okay.
yeah,
But if you are an outsider, that word doesn't belong to you, and so that we don't. It's nothing more to discuss. But I think obviously hip hop uses that word because the songs are coming from, from like a very um, it's a common word used. Like you are
okay,
not going to change it. You cannot code switch when you are like rapping. But I think it's the white kids that they are listening to these songs that they really need to understand that word. You cannot say it. You don't say it. You mute yourself during the songs because I remember, and he mentioned like the story of OJ.
yep, with
Was this?
Jay.
Yeah, JC. And you see the prices of like JC concerts, they are very expensive now.
Yeah,
So if you go to that concert, a lot of them, you see more white people than black people. And I was imagining like if I go to that concert, I want to see everybody shocked. I really want to see them because I'm going to be like, what are you doing? And it's going to be a problem. I'm going to choose to act on it because I'm like, what are you doing?
yeah. Again, what he said, don't say it. Just don't say it.
Don't even think that that word exists. That's not for you.
It's not for you. It's not for you. If you know, you know. If you don't know, don't worry about it. If you know, you know. I mean, but
I,
I think, go ahead. Go ahead.
you go ahead.
No, I mean, I think again, it's all about respect, right? And it's all about like knowing when you don't know and not overstepping yourself. You know, people I feel that do that are trying to be cool or trying to be accepted,
Oh, yeah.
right? And it's like you don't have to say something to be accepted. Just be yourself. You
Yeah.
know, don't be authentic. You understand what I mean? And that's the thing about hip hop culture. It's about being authentic. You know, and it's
It
if you know,
is what it
you
is.
know, man.
But I have seen people that they have a white friend, and among them, they use the word, and the white friend uses too. And every time I have been there, I look at them like, don't dare to choose it on me. You know,
That's real
it's
though.
difficult. I do understand, for a white person who has like the whole group of friends are black, and it must be difficult to choose, like, especially to young people. Like, can I say it? Can I not say it? But all my friends, they use it. I feel like an outsider. It must be a lot going through their mind. So I'm not going to forbid that person to use it within their friends because that is for the friends to feel comfortable or not.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the
Cause you,
content.
yeah, exactly. Because you have black people that use the N word, but they would never use it if there's no black people around. You understand what I mean? Like you have black people that don't like other black people that use the N word when white people are around, right? But then you have
Yeah,
white people who hear it, but then they're like, I get it. You know, like it's not, I'm not trying to be something I'm not, but this is y'all, you know, I don't want y'all to police yourselves too, you know? So it's a, it's it's a cultural
And,
thing. Go ahead.
and here in UK, people don't really use it.
Right. Yeah,
They
because
don't really
I
use
don't
it.
even think I hear that in y'all music. I don't even hear it in the music.
Yeah. It's funny because in Spain, um, I don't know who created the word, but they changed the word. So they would say negrata,
Mm,
which is the bad part of like the bad word of like negro, they would call negrata. But it, it is a translation mostly that you can see because in Spain, for example, all the movies are translated into Spanish. So they use the American movies when they say the word, they would change it to "Hey, negrata," and when you know English, you're like,
hilarious. But getting
yeah,
to so like he even talks about like the origin and how like it started like from white people, right? And them using it in like mainstream culture and it, you know, being like, pretty much a part of the norm.
hmm,
And hold on, hold on real quick. I'm sorry.
no problem.
Hey,
I'm here.
yeah, sorry, I
Sorry,
got a phone call.
no problem, no problem.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I got a phone call. But what was I saying?
Um, we
I
were
can't use
talking about
this.
the N word and the
Okay.
usage.
Say it one more time.
We were talking about the usage of the N word
Yeah. And so like
and how people want to be doesn't want to use it.
right. And so like what we do, right? So Q-Tip, he has a song called the N Word. If you have you heard that song before?
I don't think so.
It's from a tribe called Quest. Just look it up. It's a really dope song. But he talks about like why we use it, and he said we embrace adversity. It goes right with the race. That's what he says. And you could take it like how like historically they were using it to mean this. We took it right and we changed it right, and that's just like what we do. But it's so often that gets really really self sabotaging. If that makes any sense.
But I think that the problem is not about us. It's that the problem it is about cultural appropriation. That was the other part of the chapter. It's like we using the word. No one should be in our business. If you don't like it, you don't use it. If you like it, you use it, and that's fine. We have appropriated that term that was upon us. Now the problem is what that term is like going to other communities that they don't meant to use it and they were the oppressors one upon the time and they continue being in a lot of occasions. So it is cultural appropriation is not a word that is an issue.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
word is the
absolutely.
word.
Yeah. I love that. That's a great point. It is cultural appropriation because it's like again, you're doing it because it's cool, right? You're doing it because you think it's cool, right? And you think that's going to give you attention that you think is cool, and that's the wrong mindset, right? That's not the mindset that you want to have.
Because there is no respect and no boundaries. And that respect, the lack of respect and boundaries, we see it in every interaction. We are oppressed sometimes because we are not respected as a human being, and there are no boundaries because they are not accountable. So this mindset, it is not our issue at all. It is the issue of those that they have the privilege to pick and choose and say like, oh well, I'm going to use that word, I'm not going to use it. It's, you know, it's coming from the whole mentality of like, why I cannot use it? Why I cannot have boundaries? Why I can't? Why I'm going to feel oppressed about using that word? I
Yeah,
had never experienced that.
yeah, yeah,
and you are
really.
and you are allowed to say the word like saying like really,
Yeah,
really.
absolutely. Do you use the word?
I do. I do, especially
Why
with
you say
my.
it like that?
I have most of, you know, I'm I'm no American, but it's like I am American by association. Like my family lives there, most of my friends are American. I'm no British. That is something again. So my American, we use it. We use it, especially some of my family members. It is how we call each other.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
it is what it is. So I remember I said it once here, and someone told me, "Don't." A black guy told me, "Don't use that word." And I'm like, "Why?" And he was like, "Because our family fought so hard for that word to not be used on us, and my family detests that word." And I'm like, "You know what? I respect that. I'm not going to use it around you."
You.
I
Exactly.
don't like, you have to be mindful. A lot of people did really see it as a painful word. Other ones, it's like using dude or like yo, that, you know.
Yeah, now it's like equated to like a male, like a black, like even like that is like a male, like it's but again, if you know, you know, but if you don't know, don't use it.
Yeah, most likely don't use it.
Most likely don't use it. Nope, don't use it.
Yeah,
Don't use it. What?
yeah.
Nope, don't use it.
It's not for you. No in Jay-Z's concert, no Kendrick Lamar,
Yep.
no Travis Scott. There is no excuse. Um, it is what it is.
Is what it is.
We got privilege too. Sometimes we have to embrace it. There is some boundaries, respect, history. It's a lot of things.
That's it. That's it. It's nothing personal. Nothing personal. You
Mhm.
know.
No, it
This
is
is
what
what
it
it
is.
is.
It
Absolutely.
is what
But they be like really mad. Like, bro, you got all the world. You conquered everything, and you like literally are pissed off because you can't use this word. Like, bro, relax. Like, you
and
be
most likely you're using it, but you cannot use it in public. That is the only limitation. You probably are using it. A lot of people they do. No, what we are saying like no
yeah,
around that.
yeah,
That's it.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yep, 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 yep. Well, cool, cool, cool. Well, this was always an amazing conversation. What little wrap up would you give for people who are interested in reading Uncomfortable Conversation with a Black Man by Emmanuel Acho?
I think this book is not for us, but it's good to have it because you may have that coworker or friend that you are like, hey, here you go. I care about you and and I really think that there's some important information. We can start a conversation.
Mhm.
Let's share what you think about this. Um, I think it's a good support to have, definitely. I'm going to put it on my LinkedIn because there is a lot of people that are say like, how I can be an ally. Here
Yeah,
you go, be an ally,
absolutely. Yeah,
and give the money to Emmanuel Acho.
Yeah, support a Black business.
Yes.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, same thing. You know, this is a tool, like all books are tools, but just know like there's different levels. I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being just like fundamental, right? Not being bad, it's just fundamental. 10
Yes.
being like, you know, the highest intellect type, you know, you got to use a dictionary to understand it. I don't know. Or maybe not even just that. It's just deep, right? It just digs deeper. You know, I'll probably give it like a 3 or 2, you know? And then after that, probably, yeah. No, like,
Tier two.
not
Okay.
like the level of like the level.
Ah,
That's what I'm talking about. Not
okay.
like the book. The book is a great
Okay.
book. I'm talking about like the level, like the
Gotcha, guys.
yeah, that's what I mean. Like, because again, I feel like this is like critical race. Like they're talking about racism, right? And they're trying to have a critical lens. And I would say like on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being like the fundamental and 10 being the highest, I would say like a 2 or 3.
Yeah. I'm actually to the point I'm going to put it on my LinkedIn, and I'm going to say to people that they don't have Black people in their community, or like at work they would have questions, but they wouldn't like to ask someone close. Go and ask me. I'm happy to sit down and someone who's really want to like be out of their comfort zone. If I can be of a support, I'm here. So yeah, we have to build bridges.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just throw the book at them. Just like, oh, there you go. Surprise.
There you go.
Word. Well, I always appreciate time with you, Ms. Legros. You don't understand it. You are a wealth of knowledge and a perspective that is much appreciated. And I hope, you know, I'm just adding to the conversation, you know, and I'm just giving you reasons to wake up every Sunday, every other second Sunday at 1:30.
Yeah, it's a pleasure as always. It's so cool.
What'd you say?
It's so cool always learning something new.
Yeah, I mean, shit. I mean, I'm reading something every week, every 2 weeks, you know, and I can't be mad at that. So
yeah. Another takeaway: if you're going to Dominican Republic and it happens to you to be Black, just you know where you are in the airport. Make sure that you're cool, because if they take you to the tunnel.
yeah. I remember the lady. They had the dogs and stuff, and she asked me a question. I'm like, no, leave me alone. Bye. You know, like no. It's. Whew, man. Well, I appreciate it. Book review. We on our second book, Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Brother Man by Emmanuel. And again, I don't know if I gave my last wrap up, but again, I just would say, you know, this could be your first step, but just keep reading. You know, you got how to be anti-racist, abolitionist teaching by, Bettina Love. She's a really great, really great writer. But critical race theory has been around for years, like almost 70 years. You know, so it's just interesting to see how people are on different stages. I just think that is so cool. Like people, like I feel like I've been thinking like this since I was in college. You know. And
yeah, I remember when. No, before I was an adult, I was a kid when I started acknowledging like these people don't know.
That's
This is
powerful. Yeah. You got like a
uh-huh.
PhD in like critical race theory, probably.
Oh, we all have. If you don't have, you have. Where have you been?
You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying?
It's a good book. It's a good book. So
yeah, real good book. Absolutely. And please refrain from calling this brother Uncle Tom. All the bad words that we like to use, don't use that, because he's talking about like, because he says like, you know, Black people can be racist. Like once people read that, they'll be like, oh no, throw the book away. Like, listen, man, like listen to what he's saying. You know, there's a lot of nuance to it, right?
And we don't need, this book is not written for us. And there are not that many books that they are written for other people to learn. And it's very important.
Right.
It's really important.
Absolutely. Bet it up. Well, I appreciate you. What's your plans for today?
Same here. Well, it is 5:26. I'm going to read. I'm reading another book called The Source.
Okay.
Um, it's very interesting. It is about basically opening your mindset, training your brain to be able to achieve more in life, and changing your mindset, like to be um, in a place of abundance. So it's very interesting. You know.
Pretty much, you saying you trying to make $1 million by next year. That's what you're saying.
That's what she said. She said, like, if that is one of your goals,
See, I told you.
no, but it's not like only financially. It is about how to live a more fulfilled life. And I think sometimes you get stuck in your ways. So, in order to achieve something that is here, you would have to move there.
Right.
It's not going to happen in this situation. And for that, you have to visualize how to get there. And that is not something that we are being taught. So I'm just trying to like reeducate my brain. It gives you like information like you should sleep from 7 to 9 hours. You have to hydrate. You have to oxygenate your brain. You have to learn something new. It is all about how your brain works and unlocking that power. You know.
Okay.
So,
I like that.
sure.
Man, why did we read that book?
Um,
Oh, that's your
I think
secret
that
weapon. You trying to keep that to yourself. I get it. I get it. I get it. Trying to keep all the
actually, yeah, I would like let me finish the book first. No, but it's very good.
that
Which one do you want to read after?
let me see.
You have an idea already?
What type of topic you interested in?
I don't know. Oh, we don't have to decide yet. But
I mean, we can talk about it. Cultivating.
yeah, I will keep my eyes open and see like if I see something interesting. And what are your plans this weekend?
What'd you say?
What are your plans?
Getting my kitchen remodeled, so I got to go to Menards and pick up all the stuff I bought. I got a new dishwasher, got a new microwave, got some new doors for my house. So I'm about to be Bob the Builder.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting. I'm a little worried, but I'm excited. There's so many books, man. I don't. You ever heard of this book
Um,
before? Go ahead, sis.
why wouldn't read? I want to read a book about Haiti.
Okay, let me see. I'm gonna see. I probably got a book for you. Hold up. You ever heard of the Jacobin? Jacobin?
Yeah, I have it. I have it.
Oh, is that the book you're talking about?
Um, I don't mind it. I read it already. I can.
Okay, then
I
no.
can finish it. Uh, no, but I chose this one, so you can choose the next one. It doesn't have to be about Haiti. It can be about anything else.
I don't mind. That's where the revolution started. I know you could talk about that with your eyes closed.
I mean, I still need to learn more, so that's why.
You ever heard of this book before?
The ISIS papers, the keys to the colors. To the colors? Like the color, skin color?
Yeah. So it talks about pretty much like here. I'll show you. It's kind of like if you know Jane Elliott's work, but it talks about just like how it talks about like the biology of melanin and how it's a dominant trait compared to different other traits, and
Right.
and she equates that to subconsciously white people wanting to be like black people because of what they do to their bodies and stuff. And she argues that in the book. So this book actually got Nick Cannon, because he was referencing this book when he got accused of anti-Semitism.
That's why I wouldn't like to read that book.
Yeah, so that's this book.
Yeah, because I don't want to. I don't want to read it. It's not about that I don't want to read it. I don't want to discuss it publicly.
Absolutely.
Things can be taken out of context and then.
Here, let me think. 45, 47. Here, let me see. Okay, I got a book for you.
Let's see.
Our knowledge, because I actually have this book, is not primitive. So this book talks about the racism that's in science.
Oh.
And pretty much the decolonizing. And so Anishinaabe, this is an Indian tribe in northern Michigan.
Okay.
And botanicals, they're talking about flowers and science and stuff. But it's traditional answers like knowledge system, indigenous people. Let me see.
It's about Native American?
Yes.
Oh, I would love that. Yeah, because that is something that I don't know that much.
Knowledge system, indigenous people around the world has long been collected and presented by researchers who are not part of the culture they observe. The result is colonized version of the knowledge, one that is distorted and trivialized by ill-suited Eurocentric paradigms and of scientific investigation and classification. And our knowledge is not primitive. Wendy, oh, that's a cool last name. Genius?
I didn't see it. Oh, genius.
How do you pronounce it?
I don't know. Genius.
Contrasts the way in which Anishinaabe is presented in academic records. In doing so, she seeks to open dialogue between two communities to discuss the method for decolonizing existing texts and to develop innovative approaches for conducting more culturally meaningful research in the future.
Okay, that's interesting. Sorry, my battery is going to die.